Very big test. Huge test. What are you looking at, Mike?
Well,
Or do you
we got
want
a
to
special
start?
thing for our guest today, something we've never done before.
What?
We have live intro. So unfortunately, our guest won't be able to see it, but you will be able to see it afterwards.
This is be quiet while I play.
Yeah, well, that was the whole point. Yeah.
Sasha's like, now? Is it happening now?
You got the joke, right? Okay. All right, perfect. That was perfect.
That's how we do it, right?
All right, awesome. We're live. We're talking mush.
We're recording?
We're recording.
Fantastic.
It's official. Welcome, Sasha.
Hello.
All the way from LA, from his apartment.
Yeah.
Special COVID episode number 4 or 5. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think it's number 5, actually.
We don't actually number our episodes.
Yeah.
Our unofficial sponsor, Bottled Joy. Although right now,
I don't know if your mic there.
is it bad?
Yeah. Put on your headphones and you'll tell. Oh, no. It's nothing like you're just like not talking into the radio. I'll take it over from here.
Yeah, we have unofficial sponsors. My mic, like this headset's not working though.
It's just not working. Have you charged it?
Hello.
So what's wrong with my mic though? Should I just keep it a certain way?
Well, you got to talk into it, right? So this is the front of your mic.
Jesus, that's how I've been for the last how many episodes?
No, you've been good. You've been good.
Okay. All right, talking about. Should we just start over there? Let's start over.
No. I was gonna say we're.
I just went to the Twitch link and it says we're going live in 21 minutes. What's happening?
Oh,
Really?
It
It
still
says that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's no
Let me take a look.
We're just gonna intro this, Sasha. Okay. You all right with that?
yeah.
So I'm here with, and I'm gonna say your first name. You hit him with the last name. Cool. We are here with Sasha Chapin. It looks Chapin. Man, I was so blown away by that when you told me your actual last name. Damn.
I'm here to raise your consciousness.
Expect the unexpected here on Talking Mush. Yeah, no, I checked out the Twitch link and it actually looks fine to me.
It's all good.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you're just paused on your end because I remember we actually got down to like 8 minutes on our end on the Twitch stream. So for it to say it's 21 minutes right now is a little strange.
Guys, the Twitch people will go back to playing games. It's okay.
They will. But yeah, we're looking good. I can see myself.
Oh yeah, we are.
I can see myself talking.
Wow, you actually are here to raise our consciousness because I've never seen this before and it like just expanded my mind just now. Wow. Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
So Sasha, you are a writer.
Correct.
Completely writer. Recently wrote a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to get into that, but we're on Talking Mush. We're here to talk about psychedelics, and I'd love to know what your opinion on psilocybin is, your view on it.
My view on it is that it's an incredible drug. It's not for everybody, and it's not a drug for all seasons or all applications. It's like, if carefully administered, I think a fine recreational drug, and if administered with caution in specific situations, it's a powerful medicine. I'm very bullish on psilocybin. Definitely pro.
Man, that was actually a great way of putting it. I like that explanation. That was solid. So I guess, yeah, there's a question that I really want to ask you, but I'm just going to wait. We're just going to get into psilocybin first before we delve into that. But can you tell us about, you want to go to the first time he did mushrooms or the most that he's done? What do you want to go
I want to hear about the first time that he's done mushrooms.
Let's go with the first time you tried psilocybin.
Sure. So I was a really lonely kid who nobody liked, and all of a sudden I turned 16 and a group of alterna goth stoner kids sort of took me in, and all of a sudden there were drugs around me and I started doing them. And I was at a party with this girl Ashley's house, Ashley Wheeler, if you're watching. Thank you for your contributions to my life. And
She's our only fan.
Ashley, she would like us a lot, actually, I think.
Awesome.
I should have messaged Ashley. I'm sorry, Ashley. But she always got me stoned, and then we were at this party, and I was stoned, and she just handed me some mushrooms, and I'd never heard about mushrooms. I didn't know anything about their effects, and I just thought it was going to be like weed, but more of that.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people at this party. She had interpersonal dynamics to manage, so she couldn't really trip sit for me. And I don't know if she saw that as her role. So I just sat in the garage, and then reality started to explode around me. And then the rest of my life began, I guess. I mean, I wandered around the house. I had a bit of an existential crisis. I ended up sobbing in the bathroom. It was a blue-tiled bathroom.
Yeah.
It was very pale. This was in the middle of a Canadian winter. I was wearing this blue cocktail shirt. And I looked at myself, pale against the blue background. And I had this thought like, well, that's silly. I'm sad, but why am I sad? I'm just a small bison standing in the midst of the tundra. This seemed very obvious to me at the time. And then my mood improved. And I had sort of a silly afternoon. And then I left that state feeling a great deal of equanimity and self-composure. But at the time, I didn't really connect that to the magic mushrooms. I didn't really know what had just happened to me. I didn't know what was the shrooms, what was the weed. This is a way of doing shrooms and being introduced to them that I wouldn't recommend to anybody under any circumstances. Like, I think it was terrible, the way I approached it. I also think in a funny way, so I have great respect for indigenous cultures that use psychedelics as elements in rites of passage.
Me as well.
On the other hand, I feel like psychedelics are sort of wasted on the young, because if you haven't had years of life experience going through different careers and doing different things and sort of noticing how life becomes mundane and routinized, it's harder to appreciate what your cognition being temporarily shattered can do to the way you view things. So I didn't have a really deep experience. It was only sort of later that psychedelics became really educational for me.
Huh. I like that view. Kind of wasted on the young. Like I understand it, and like I think there's like both sides of it. But yeah, that's actually a good insight there.
Yeah, I guess it's a matter of like maturity. Like, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Do you have an intention going into it? Do you have a full understanding of the depth of like the history of the plant medicine and have you heard experiences from other people, and have you listened to this podcast is really what I'm trying to get to.
Have you been adopted by this select society?
What
ranks of the psychedelic brotherhood?
That is right.
One thing I got really excited about, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you had actual almost titles for your mushroom trips when we first spoke about them. Am I wrong about that?
Titles for my mushroom trips?
Yeah, like I feel like you almost had like you were like, oh, you kind of listed 3 of them and they had rough draft titles to go with them. I might be thinking of another person. We've been vetting a lot of psychonauts.
Yeah, there are a bunch of us lying around, huh? There are some that would come to my mind more quickly than others if I think about significant experiences.
Can we just go with the most significant experience that you've had on psilocybin?
Oh wow, it's really, really difficult to pick one out, but
like most meaningful maybe will help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there are 2 that are sort of tied for me. If it's okay, I'll give you a 2-part answer. The first one is that so I didn't do shrooms for a while, and then I kept reading about psychedelic medicine sort of in my 20s, and I was very convinced of the curative power of psychedelics, but they weren't really in my life. And then just like the guy who sold me weed occasionally was like, hey, I have some mushrooms, would you like some? And I was like, sure, that sounds like a good time to me. And then I took a small amount. They affected me more than I thought. And that evening I was going to go eat dinner by myself and go to a concert and take a long walk through the snow, which is the kind of evening I would normally have. But I had the experience of my mundane reality suddenly being charged and representative and giving me a sense of the microcosm of each part of my life. So I would look at a snowbank, and the snow would represent to me the way that certain habits and attitudes of mine had been so crystallized that it was hard to access them. I sort of saw them as this undifferentiated mass, but that I could break into them if I wanted to. And then I went to this Vietnamese restaurant, and I ate beef soup, and then the basil reached out of the soup to me and sort of reminded me of my continuity with the natural world, right? And I had this kind of cliched experience where the metaphor engine in my head was cranked up to 1,000,000, and I had grown sort of static in my life and ambitions for a while, and that was it sort of tilted me off my axis a little bit. And I think I can link that event to me pursuing writing professionally, to traveling around the world, to the series of events that led me to California, where I am engaged and happy. So it was pivotal. Yeah.
So you're saying your psychedelic experiences kind of laid the path for a lot of the significant events in your life?
Sure, yeah. At times I've been kind of it's funny because like people know me if they know what I do, generally for my book, in which I'm kind of a crazy person. Like, so my book chronicles a couple of years I traveled around the world playing chess everywhere, even though I'm bad at chess, which is an unusual and probably inadvisable thing to do. But I was very stuck in my ways for a number of years. Not maybe stuck in my ways, but sort of like slowly ping-ponging between different related lifestyles and not taking a step back and thinking, what's available to me in the world? Like, I have a small amount of privilege. Can I leverage it to lead a radically different life that I would enjoy more? And I think psychedelics were the first step for me in thinking along those lines.
Wow. And at what age was this that you had these significant happenings?
This was like 23, 24. There was also an element to it where I'd struggled with bipolar disorder for a long time. And I went on mood stabilizers eventually. And mood stabilizers did a great job of restoring me to sanity. But they didn't I had a certain amount of creative fire where I felt I did when I was struggling with bipolar disorder. And then psychedelics allowed me to recapture some of that, but without going totally crazy. I could go crazy for 6 hours and then feel better afterwards and take some of that with me productively.
Right. I actually feel the same way when I get into my trips.
Really?
It's just kind of like going mad, and then you sort of, when you're downloading that afterwards, you just feel inspired to create, I guess, in your given medium.
Yeah. Well, were you saying that was what was happening to you on mushrooms, or that was just how you were dealing with bipolar disorder? Like that would just happen while you were dealing with that whole disorder?
Wait, which part?
The whole part of you having this almost creative fire, was that because of the mushrooms, or is that something you were experiencing when you were going through the bipolar disorder?
Yeah, so when you're in bipolar mania, everything seems significant, but in a way that's really destructive because it happens every day of your life, and it can make you think like you're a prophet, or that you were put on earth to lead a revolution. I know one guy in a support group I was attending for a while who actually moved to Venezuela because he wanted to start a rebellion. So it can make you think things like that. If the world is charged with unreal significance every day, throughout your whole day, bad things happen. But if the whole world is charged with unreal significance for about 6 to 12 hours, you can go on that journey and then come back to your life without having made any insane decisions. And
that really resonates.
Proliferation of thoughts.
I feel so powerful when I'm like in the weeds of a mushroom trip,
So when you're tripping, you feel like
I feel like what he's talking about. Like you can lead a nation, like you can do anything, like all the power. And it's weird because it's an interesting dichotomy, I guess, because like it also calms your ego coming out of it. I guess like going to those lengths, that spectrum, feeling so powerful, and then also at times feeling so weak when you're in the scared moments of your mushroom trip. I guess like having that spectrum, when you come out of it, you're humbled by it, and that's why people say it calms your ego. Also, you're able to come out of it without making any rash decisions. You were saying, based on those emotions. But I've definitely been there many times. It's one of the like my favorite parts of emotion. You feel like you're downloading the universe and that you're meant for something, and it's all just I don't really know how to connect it, but it's just like it's a pleasurable feeling. But then you don't do anything with it. You just come off of it afterwards, and yeah, I don't know.
Wow,
I don't feel like that after a trip ever.
That's really interesting.
And that's what I'm describing when I say, you know, sometimes I feel like if I didn't know better, I would think God existed. Not that I do know better, but but that's like those same power moments. You feel like something is like just being downloaded into you, and that's greater than yourself. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're saying that's what bipolar disorder feels like,
which is really interesting. Yeah.
At times, I mean, bipolar disorder, like the world doesn't get funny colors and the walls don't wiggle around, but there is a sense of interconnectedness and being like right at the heart of things being sort of essential, which I feel like is a general, I mean, like when you have 2 glasses of wine, your associations about the world can start to become a little looser. The same can be true of like, I don't know, ketamine, a lot of other different drugs.
Of course.
Bipolar mania is really about significance, a certain kind of it. And so is a lot of the psychedelic experience. There's a core there, which is the psychedelic experience is, you know, you're less likely to like commit crimes, burn all your clothing, or like run naked through the street.
Or move. Less likely?
Pardon me?
I said you said you're less likely when you're on psychedelics to do all those things. You're saying
much less likely, yeah.
Awesome.
Based on my experience, anyway.
Awesome.
Can I just ask a question? Because I've actually never had anybody talk about having a disorder like this and also going into psychedelic use. Have you found that it has flared things up, dissipated it, kept it at bay, anything like that?
I mean, I think it's been a vital part of my mental health. And there was a brief period, I guess, when I was first rediscovering psychedelics, when I did them quite frequently. But like now in my life, it's about, I would say like about quarterly, you know, that I do psychedelics.
Yeah.
And the way it manifests is that I think some of the obsessive tendencies that I have that aren't necessarily related to bipolar disorder strictly, but definitely contributed to it, are ameliorated by psychedelics, because you make these like convoluted balls of thought, and you have all these thought patterns that just build and build, or that's the way it is for me. And then you have these sort of bundles, and it's almost like it's laundry, and then your closet's full of laundry, and then the door's bursting open, and then 4 times a year you do the laundry. That's what psychedelics do for me in terms of my mental health.
Interesting. I've always talked about doing it like once a year. 4 times a year is your number. How much do you usually do during your ritual?
It's not like a strict number. Like I didn't do them like at all for 1 year of my life. Is that true? I don't know if that's true, but I haven't kept track, which I should have. One of my regrets about my psychedelic experience is not documenting each experience better. But
right, me too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's usually about like 2.5, 3 grams for streams. I find that to be kind of a golden zone in terms of like, because for me, if you go too far out, a lot of the content isn't usable because it's so extreme.
Right.
But then if you do like a gram, you're just kind of sitting around feeling loopy, which is its own sort of fun, but not really what I'm looking for. So like 2.5, 3 is where I tend to be most productive.
Okay, right on. Yeah, no, we've been hearing a lot from other people who do that range, and typically they say like when they're doing it with their friends or with groups of people, that they get a lot more out of it in the 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 range versus the hero does. I'm wondering, do you usually do it alone, or do you usually do it with other people, your friends or significant other?
Usually I do it alone. Recently I've been taking psychedelics with my fiance. One of the things that was the basis of our relationship is that we are both, I guess the word is psychonauts, although I always think of psychonauts as like people, pardon me, burping.
No problem.
People who have like a closet full of research chemicals and like ordered all sorts of stuff from the dark web, and I just sort of dabble, I think, in comparison. Like we were both very enthusiastic about psychedelics, so we do that kind of thing together at this point, but traditionally alone.
Cool. I like that. Before, somebody else was saying that they always did it with somebody. I believe they were always with friends and stuff. I got to try both. Spectrums because I've always been traditionally alone. When I first started doing it, I would always have somebody nearby. But then after like an experience with him, actually, I was like, I can do this on my own. Like, because we were like pretty much on our own. We were like just in different parts of the room.
Yeah, I always seek mushroom buddies.
Yeah,
who can be with me, but also not.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much alone. I didn't start screaming or go nuts or anything. I'm like, I think I'm fine to be alone, and I find I'm able to approach it with so much more reverence when I'm by myself, rather than with friends. Because with friends, it's like, I guess you just have fun with your friends, which is good too. Just I always try to be respectful.
When you're around people, you're trying to, be. It feels like, especially when you're on mushrooms, it feels like you're trying to be a certain way for that person. And that's like more magnified than ever before because everyone acts a little bit differently around different friends. They might talk a little differently, with your parents versus your friend, let's say. So yeah, that catering gets magnified when you're on mushrooms, and it really bothers me when I feel like I'm trying. Not bothers me, but like I'm hyper aware of like the fact that I'm like trying to be a certain way for that person, and I know it's interfering with my own trip. Instead of me just being in my own head, I'm thinking about them and what's going on with them and how can I maybe make their trip better.
I get that. When I'm with you, I can feel you doing that.
That makes sense.
And I'm like, he's fine. It's my buddy.
Well, usually that doesn't last too long. That vibe,
yeah,
right?
it'll be like just like odd things, and I'll be like, oh, he's like really aware of me.
He's super hyper aware. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Of anyone around me, I'm like a I don't know, a service person, a caregiver. Like I'll make sure like everyone's needs are actually taken care of. Very like
yeah. That's usually what it is. It's like, hey, do you need something? And I'm like,
sure. Yeah. I'll ask
in my head, I'm like, there's nothing you can do for me right now anyway. So
just smash some glass on the floor. Oh, there's some water. Yeah.
If I don't know if I misheard when I was walking over there for a second. But did you say that you do it with your fiance and that you have done it with her?
I have, yeah. I met her at a castle in France. And our romance was sort of one of the things that sparked it was us smoking DMT together, which is, I guess, its own subject.
Yeah.
And then she was living in Prague. I was living in Toronto. So we went back to our separate countries. We talked on the phone every night. And then I visited her in Prague on my birthday. And very shortly after I arrived, we got engaged. And then we did shrooms together. And like, it's funny because we had just done this totally unreal thing, meeting and getting engaged 3 weeks later. And then shrooms sort of helped us step back and examine what we'd just done and be introspective about it. And then I came down from shrooms and we were like, all right, this is real. We are engaged. It was like an initiation process almost.
Very cool.
That's amazing. I like that. I like Tom Bilyeu. He talks about he's like this influencer guy, but he talks about he got like a tattoo when he got married. He's like you need some kind of ritualistic, meaningful thing to like really bring things together.
Cement it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And that's a second couple that did it like this. I'm getting married like that too. Fuck it, I'm doing it.
Yeah, you mentioned you guys met on DMT. I actually read that article that you posted about it, and one of the things you mentioned, I think, was that you could share what it was like to die or what death was like. I'd love to hear. Please share.
What death was like. Well, so I feel I should qualify that, which is that, as you two know, there's a hypothesis that near-death experiences are generated by DMT. There's this little cache of DMT we're all carrying around, and when we have a near-death experience, it floods our brain. We do a megadose of it. And so I experienced some sensations that I guess I've heard reported by people who've had near-death experiences. So seems plausible that it's what it feels like to die. And what I felt was like this is a metaphor I used. I realized that at my birth, I had been spat out of this ocean, and I was just sort of like a drop hovering above the surface of the ocean for my entire life. And I was just about to drop in. And it wasn't like I was disappearing into the void. Like I'd come out of the undifferentiated field of pure existence, and then I was dropping back into it. And then I didn't, because the trip ended, and then I like went back to my tent and took a nap. But and I got married, or got engaged rather. But it really felt like it was a brush with the edge of existence, and I looked up at it, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't so terrible. It's just like coming home. Home to what? I don't know, because I haven't gotten there yet."
Well, you have. You just don't remember.
I've done more DMT. I had an occasion where I saw the tunnel. You know the tunnel.
The light.
You go on DMT and you see the tunnel.
I've never done DMT.
Tunnel that there's a light on the end of.
Yeah.
And it felt similar. I had a similar feeling coming out of it, where I was like, "Wow, that's very impersonal, and it doesn't have anything to do with me, and yet it's also the fundamental fact of existence." I just went and experienced it, and then I came back. It's weird. DMT is so extreme and so powerful that it's almost hard to integrate, because you're like, well, that just happened. You know? Like
words are inadequate.
Symphony. It's like you can't really. It's like if you comment on it in a way that's more more explicit than like, wow, look at that thing. It seems sort of pompous. You're almost like demeaning it.
It's a wild experience. I've done it as well. And I haven't seen the tunnel, but I think I've been in the tunnel that you're talking about, and a lot of things were happening like all around it. You know, it's like a tunnel and also like the vastness of the universe at the same time, kind of thing. Like anything can happen there. Theater of the mind, almost. It's it's pretty crazy. But one question that I had, because I saw that article that Mike was talking about, and did you get any type of calling to get engaged to this, your now fiance, like while you were in the trip at all?
Sort of indirectly. I mean, so I got up from I did it in a circle of people who were just gathered there because there was one guy at this party who had DMT, and then everybody learned they had DMT. So then everybody came and took his DMT, and then there was no more DMT. So after the peak of it, I stood up and I walked around, and I had a sense of being able to review my entire life on the spot, and I realized that I was living in this like transient way where I was embracing novelty. I would like date somebody, move on, or like find a friend group and move on, travel around the world looking for this and looking for that. And it seemed like a life quest to me, but really that I was just dithering and not committing to anything. And I was like, I just met this person and she's like really special and I should hang on to her. I'm like, maybe she's my wife? The person I just met. And then I went and I looked for her and she was gone. She'd wandered away somewhere. And in the process of looking for her, I was like, wow, I really miss her already. I guess I'm going to marry her. So.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was like a moment of realization. That happened like a number of times though. I mean, like when you meet someone and you get engaged to them 3 weeks later, a lot of the time your better judgment turns to you and says, Sasha, are you really going to go through with this? And you say to your better judgment, yes. But that conversation happens a number of times. That was just the initiation of that conversation, I suppose.
That's incredible. Yeah, I only asked that because I had a very similar experience when I was on DMT. I was wondering.
No way.
Yeah, it was odd. It was like usually when I do psychedelics, I'm very cognizant. I can do things. I can walk around if I need to. I try not to, but I can. With DMT, like when I did this experience, I was laying down, eyes were closed, eyes were covered, so we could get closed eye visuals, and the visuals were coming, and usually the thoughts are racing so quickly that you can't grab onto anyone. It was like our last guest, like Mel said, she was like, as soon as you have this epiphany thought, by the time it's like you finish it, there's already another one, and it like just keeps happening so fast, like that. Yeah. And I was going through that, but there was one thought that kept coming back, which doesn't usually happen with any kind of psychedelic trips I have, and it just kept showing me that I'm to go to my girlfriend's parents' house and go up to the door and ask for her hand in marriage. And like something just kept telling that to me. Kept saying, you have to go to her father. You have to make sure you go to her father. Like something just kept saying that. Make sure you go to her father and like do this whole thing. And I kept seeing the actual scene play out, and it was very emotional. It made me tear up and everything like that. And yeah, it was a thought that came back throughout this like long session that we had of doing this. The thought came back at least 4 times, and I was like, huh, this is like, and it stuck afterwards. Like it didn't go away, and I was like, huh, this is like something. And the only other thing that I ever had that's even close to that is when I was tripping with this guy, and I was watching just videos, and something kept telling me in my head that you're to work in video. Like you should work with video. You should work in video editing. You should work in video production. And those are, and that's what I do now. So I guess I'm marrying this person.
Listening to the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Or the DMT in this case.
Yeah.
I guess you had one on DMT and one on mushrooms?
Yeah,
Yeah, interesting.
Very odd.
Was it like a distinct voice? Did you know what it sounded like?
They always sound like me. I don't know about you when you're hearing these things, but it sounded like me. But I'm very connected to the concept of your higher self. And I've even seen my higher self a couple times. So yeah, it was just me, the voice. Yeah. But with DMT, it was more like a native lady that was like showing me things. But the whole getting married, that was like me, like my voice. It was very odd. It was a very odd situation. Like you said, like you can't even, I sound pompous right now trying to explain it. I can't even.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Hard to avoid that.
Yeah, right.
And it's
and then I felt complete oneness.
Psychedelics to people sometimes, they're just like, oh, I know what my thoughts being yanked around is like. I've been drunk before, or like I've been high before, and you just have to go, no, you have no idea. It's completely different. It's
yes.
so much more lucid and so much more active.
Yes.
So much more cerebral. But you just, I mean, it's hard to, you kind of have to live it, right?
You really have to live it. It's so funny that you say that, because I was just having a conversation with somebody, and they were like, yeah, I meditate. So, it's pretty much the same thing as like psilocybin from what I've heard. And I'm like, no, it can't be. No. I'm like, I meditate too. I'm like, no, it's not the same, please. It's nuts.
I meditate, and it can get pretty crazy, but not as crazy. Not by a long shot.
Not by a long shot.
That's good to know, because I've been under the impression that it can be as crazy, but I haven't gone deep into the meditation side of things.
No, I mean, you can come
other than breath work.
Yeah, you can come out of a meditation, sobbing, just like in a psilocybin trip, you can come out sobbing.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's just different. I don't know what it is. Interesting. It's like bacon versus pork.
I should say, like, I'm a hacky. Like, the most I've ever meditated is like an hour a day. So I'm sure, like, if you go to a Goenka retreat for a month and meditate for 12 hours a day, and you're not sleeping, and you're eating vegetarian food that's like bad, has no salt on it, like probably things get way crazier. But
I don't think I'd survive one of those 20-day silent retreats where you can't talk, and all the other rules. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I actually did one.
I think I'd get kicked out. Day 2.
I did a 10-day one when I was trying to quit smoking weed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to like get away from people, and I couldn't get away from anybody. So I just like.
When was this?
I think you were living at Elgin.
And you did a 10-day retreat?
Yeah, I had to leave for like 10 days.
Damn, didn't even notice.
Because I was like, I think you were the only person that did notice, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Didn't even remember.
That's my friend. But yeah, it's very difficult. Very difficult. It's not fun, especially if you're coming off of like an addiction. You're like trying not to smoke weed and shit,
dude. It's hard. It's been sweaty.
Yeah. But I guess, where do you want to go? Psilocybin or DMT?
I'm wondering, like, what? Just we've talked about all these experiences. What's the most you've done in one sitting for psilocybin? I'm just curious.
5 grams, which is like not. I mean, some people that's like an ordinary Saturday afternoon, but for me it felt pretty extreme.
It is. That's a lot. That's not an ordinary day. That's a hero dose.
And not to mention, like, the toxicity varies from dose to dose. So your 5 grams could have been someone else's 8 grams potentially.
Sure.
True.
So. Yeah.
Very true.
And is that one of the experiences that you've already shared with us? Your 5 gram?
No, so it was right before I left to Thailand, where the beginning of my book is, and where like another chapter of my life started. I had this experience where my entire reality was deconstructed in front of me. Like, and I walked down the street, and the buildings and the sidewalk were being deconstructed and reassembled. And I listened to different music. I did all, you know how schizophrenics are always reporting that like everybody looks the same and everybody's spying on them and they're like trapped in a maze or whatever.
Yeah.
I felt that. Like I felt like everything was oppressively similar. And that was a real message to me that I need to break out of my old ways. The only insight I came away with that time was that like I was living this life in Toronto that was very, very comfortable, where I was like moderately socially popular and I had a comfortable job and a comfortable life. But it was all like variations on a theme. And I really needed to change the theme like urgently. And then I changed the theme urgently and it worked out well for me.
Okay. I like that. That's like, I don't know if I'd say one of the first people, but that's like a good example of like hearing the message and doing the work. Like directly after you're like gotta change, and then you like just went after it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like diving into like a new experience. Being adaptable is something to be admired.
True, it's very true.
Thank you.
Would you describe yourself as resilient?
Do I describe myself as what?
Resilient.
I don't know. I mean, I've gone through some stuff. Like I was bullied a lot when I was a kid, and I was really unpopular. And nobody had faith in me. And look at me now. I'm doing okay. But I don't know. I know somebody who like grew up in Haiti and had to by hook or by crook escape with the help of like this pedophile who wanted to seduce him when he was a boy.
Yeah.
And all of these things, and came to America and made a fortune as an artist. So that guy's more resilient than me. Or maybe he's not more resilient, but I haven't been tested like he has. I think I've been tested like to a moderate degree of severity.
Okay.
And I have done moderately well in response.
Okay. Well, you know what? Like, I think anybody who does psychedelics has to have somewhat of a resilient mind. I just think the experience itself is very heavy, so you gotta be a little resilient there. But I think also going through that whole thing of being the kid that nobody liked and everything like that, and just getting through that, that's also a very big test of resilience. Because I think we've all been there to an extent, but by the sounds of it, it sounds like that was like a extended part of your life. It sounds like it was like a good 3-4 years of going through stuff like that. So that's very
like
resilient.
6 years.
6, yeah. So yeah, that's very resilient.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, for someone at that age, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Psychedelics added resilience, I think. Like, I don't think they took it away. I had this, like, one trip when I was 26. So, like, I struggled with my appearance a lot. My face is really asymmetrical. I don't know if you noticed, but, like, if I turn this way, I look quite a bit different than when I turn this way.
Okay.
And, like, it's okay with me now, but it wasn't for a long time. And then, like, one time I did acid, and I came home and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I felt like I was clearly seeing my face for the first time. And it was just like, oh, that's your face. It's kind of crooked. Don't be weird about that. That's the thought I had. It wasn't more complicated than that. It was just like, that's your face. Don't be weird about it. Ever since then, I felt okay about my face.
Yeah, often
so
when
that's an example of like, it gave me resiliency. It didn't take resiliency to do it, you know?
Yeah, often when you're dealing with something that feels like a cliff, it's more like a curb. You just sort of like, it's a lot easier to deal with than you think. It's all in your mind building up, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but that buildup is real, you know? Like, it's not real, but it is. Like, what you're building up in your mind is like real, but like when you go into the situation, it tends to all fall away.
Right. It's easy to just, it's like the bigger the giant, the harder they fall.
Yeah, right.
In a way. Yeah, I know. I was bullied for like a number of years as well, so I can totally relate. I was probably bullied well into high school.
7. You got like 7 years.
He knows.
Solid.
Because he was one of the bullies.
I was not.
I'm kidding.
He always says that. Jesus.
He's gonna hit me.
I feel like I should know more about this situation that you guys are.
I actually don't identify Colin as a bully. He was more.
We went to
more of a neutral party.
We went to elementary school together.
He was more of a jokester. Like, he was more funny than mean.
So we were in school together from the time we were kids until we were 13.
Oh, cool.
And then we drifted apart because I disbanded from everybody. I didn't want to be a part of that social circle anymore. And then we reconnected around 19 years old.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I like the story when I took your mushrooms for the first time. Just tell that story.
Allegedly, they're not. I don't know. Maybe they were mine. What do you mean? What story? Like, oh, you know what? The first time I guess we could talk about it. The first time I actually got turned on to the possibility of mushrooms being like a fun thing to do or like a good thing is I had them and I didn't want them because somebody had just given them to me. I've never done them before, right? I'm like 19. I didn't do my first trip until I was like 21, 22. So I didn't know what they were, and I was just kind of like giving them to people. I was telling my friends, and then they'd be like, oh, I want them, and I just give them to them. And he came back like 3 different times, and I'm like, he's like, man, you have no idea. He's like, this is the best thing ever, and this and that. And I'm like, And I remember I had just a little bit more.
I'm very chatty.
Yeah, I had like just a little bit more, and I'm like, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this one. Because you were calling me like a lot, and I was like, you know what? You can't have this one. This one's... And then that was the actual reason, because like you were two people who I like really respected were like pumped about them. They were like, yo, you have no idea. Oh my God. I was like, okay. Let me just hold on to these. And then I still didn't do them for a little while. And then when I did them, I was like, I had so many. Damn it. And they're all gone. I'm like, no.
So oh man.
A tragedy.
Yeah, right. It was a big mistake. It's like people selling Bitcoins for like pizzas.
Oh my God.
It's like the same kind of thing. That's how I feel.
Oh wow, that's really funny.
Because you never know. You never know where that goes. Taking those things, like you never know where it goes with your mind. Like your whole story could change if like maybe you did mushrooms 2 more times. You know? Like maybe if you did it a year earlier,
like that was my whole life.
Right? Like everything could have been different. Like imagine you waited 2 years, like Sasha, like imagine you waited 2 years before you did them, and instead of being that kid, like you went on and like those people were like, okay, he doesn't want to do drugs, and all of a sudden they left you alone, and then you didn't have anybody. Like everything can change by doing them or not doing them.
I'm gonna put mushrooms in bags and I'm gonna label them. Like one will be like my wife. One will be my job, my career, and that will just be like previously set intentions, but like on that level though.
Ooh, that's actually smart.
Life-changing intentions, as they should be, right? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So how do you feel your brain's been enhanced, if at all? I know you said it added resilience. Do you feel like what else do you feel like it actually did for you?
Like leadership skills or dealing.
Better time management. No, I don't know. This is something to talk about because I think it's an interesting subject, and something I want to explore in writing. So people have this idea that like people take psychedelics and then they drop out of college and then they like live in a van somewhere. But for me, they've actually made me in a funny way more conservative, because I used to have very like kind of like by default iconoclastic anti-society views, and then psychedelics, when I thought about politics and just civilization, the way my life was structured, I was thinking like, things are more complex than I think, and I don't know as much about the ordering of society and the structure of life as I think I do, and it made me sort of more of a political moderate, and just like a moderate in terms of lifestyle, not in the sense that like I'm in between everything and I could vote for any political party. More that I think about things more on a case-by-case basis and don't take my knowledge for granted. That's definitely an enhancement. I also I'm like more chill now. I'm definitely more chill. I know I might not seem like a chill person, and I'm not, but like I used to be really not chill.
I'd love to hear an example.
Yeah, were you like against psychedelics or something? Were you like how were you not chill before?
Oh, just like emotionally volatile, and things would like really, really anger me, and I would they're like weeks of anguish about my place in society. I'm
Mm.
like, I still stress out, but not just not as much. I don't know. It's not particularly exciting. I just feel like my overall level of angst has
Ex-
dropped.
Right on. Yeah, no, I think mushrooms have helped with my own anxiety as well. Um, just general like being worried about things like in the moment or being stressed out about just a situational thing.
Yeah. I guess it just kind of brings you to where you need to be. Because with me, it was kind of like the opposite. Like, there's been like a bunch of trips where I'm like, life is very real, and I have to treat it as such. Like, I've had like many of those things where I'm like, this is serious business we got going on. Which it's like you get like too much to that side sometimes. But like, I've had trips where I come out of it like, I gotta fucking. It's time to buckle down. Like, no more messing around.
Oh, yeah. That's so funny because I usually come out of my trips with the you just reminded me of this. It's been so long, but like life is a joke more than anything. It's just like, and what I mean by that is like you know, I know that I'm responsible enough and I have enough opportunities in front of me that I don't have to like be worrying about things. Things will be okay. Things are on the other hand like are out of your control, like you were alluding to before. Like you don't know how everything works. You're just one person. Like why would you a life lived in anxiety is a life half lived, I guess. So I would always that a huge takeaway for me in the early days was just like, you know, you really don't need to take life like seriously at all. Like just but all that doesn't mean like fuck right off and be irresponsible. It just means, you know, don't stress. And do your thing.
True.
Follow your passions.
Yeah. True.
And things will fall into place.
Funny.
The universe has a way of just, you know, presenting what you need when you need it. If you don't think about it too much.
Yeah, it's weird how it works that way. They're also like, I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience, but when I was like 25 and I was doing psychedelics a lot, there was one time when I took TCD, which I think is an underrated, underprescribed psychedelic. I think TCD is great. I was on TCD. At a certain point in the trip, I was like, why are you doing psychedelics again? Like, my big psychedelic revelation was that I had had enough, that I'd done enough psychedelics, that I received the perspective I was going to receive at that part of my life. And then I should just be responsible and like spend my weekends cultivating relationships and being a normal person.
Right.
Psychedelics are kind of self-limiting in that way. I think like most people can't do a lot of psychedelics because their brain tells them to stop, which is really unusual for a powerful drug, right?
Right.
Like you don't get that with heroin. People can fall into K-holes that last years.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to like drift into functional alcoholism and then stay there. I mean, if you live in like the Czech Republic or like Latvia, that's just your everyday life. But like psychedelics tell you to stop doing them. Timothy Leary at one point said, I think it was Leary, said, when you get the message, hang up the phone.
Right.
Sometimes psychedelics tell you to hang up the phone. That's an amazing feature of them.
Yeah. That's actually what I got when I did DMT. That was like another thought that kept popping up. It was like, you don't have to do this anymore. It just kept saying you're fine. Like look at what's going on around you. You don't have to keep doing that.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Dennis McKenna contradicts him with the hanging up the phone thing. Having said that, I've had friends of mine tell me, like, after I told them how much psychedelics I was doing at one point. There was a year where it was heavy, more than quarterly, and he's like, man, like, you know, he's like, for me, like, I got everything I could out of them in my early years. Like, there's only so far you can go. Yeah, I don't know how much I agree with that. There's so many different contexts and so many different ways you can do it. Just recently, I tried doing psychedelics with an eye mask and with like prepared music for like 6 hours, 4 hours, whatever, and that was a completely different experience in a different world for me.
Of course.
And I got so much more out of that I hadn't from my previous experiences.
Yeah, it's you know what, like I did get that message, like you don't need to keep doing this and everything, but at the same time it's like I have a friend and he refuses to do any kind of psychedelics, and I'm always like, why, and he's like, I did them in my early years, like when he was 15, 16, 17. He's like, so they can't help me with whatever I'm going through now. And I'm like, but like you were a kid then, and like so you got the most you could get out of it at that point. Like I know for me, definitely when I have a kid, I know I'm gonna take some kind of trip. You have to.
Oh yeah, to get prepared for your newborn, do a trip. You'll like have so much like
something, right? Like I don't know. Like I feel like at those points where you're going through such a transition, like
I agree.
It's
No, every single one of my friends who told me they're gonna have a baby soon, I highly recommended that they do a psychedelic trip before that baby gets born, because it will completely like. But I think the real answer is, and what we don't know yet, is when you actually have the baby, it's the same as a psychedelic experiences. People compare their psychedelic trips with events like having a baby. So I think it's akin to. So it's like I already am there by having the baby. I don't need to do the drugs too. I'm already freaking doing the drugs.
Yeah, but
by
like,
having that event happen.
I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know either.
Everybody goes through their trips differently, I guess. How do you go through your trips, Sasha? Like, how's your mind working? I know you said you have bundles of thoughts. Is that like how it is primarily through most of it?
It's hard to describe. I mean, there's sort of like I think this is so typical, it's barely worth discussing, but there's a like half an hour to an hour where you're like wondering whether you're high, which is sort of fun because you're always like, you're like looking around your living room and you're like, does that look different than usual? And then you realize you don't look around your living room all that much and like regard your surroundings as a visual phenomenon in and of themselves that's interesting. And then very quickly things totally spiral out of control as you approach the peak. And then you decompress and you consider the peak. Or if you're on acid or something that functions in that vein, more of a sine wave, you're like peak, things are insane. And then you can examine, and things are insane again, and then you bounce around until normalcy happens.
The other thing is, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing is when I'm actually coming down from mushrooms, like I actually want to do them like more. I'm like, I want this to last forever.
Wow.
But then once I'm come down finally, then I get into the zone of like, okay, like maybe later. You know, it has that anti-addictive effect to it. Once you've sobered up, you're like, okay, I got the message.
The post-peak, I think, is frequently the most fun time.
Yeah.
Because the peak is not fun.
Right.
Is it non-fun? It's kind of outside of fun.
It's usually difficult. You're dealing with something.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say to your discussion of like whether psychedelics are of use anymore. So I think like a lot of the early gains, the noob gains, as they would say in the weightlifting world, from psychedelics come from big moments of self-discovery. But there's only so much of that you can do. I really believe that every one of us is complex and nuanced, but not that much. Like, there's an end of self-exploration where self-exploration just becomes narcissism. The central dilemmas of your life are revealed. You know about some of your characteristic flaws, and you know about what you like. And I think for most people, for a lot of people, that comes, I don't know, like around your 30s,
right?
Like 20s. And that process can be accelerated by psychedelics or like enriched. But I think when you're older, psychedelics are a better tool for interpersonal exploration and self-exploration.
Okay.
You guys were talking about how, like,
Makes
Michael,
sense.
you use psychedelics and you wonder about, about vertical versus horizontal processing in therapy. You know what that is?
Can you explain it?
No, I've never heard that.
So if you're talking to your therapist and you bring up something from your childhood, there are two ways to talk about that for your therapist. There's vertical processing, where you talk about the content itself, right? The memory of childhood, what it represents in your life. You could also horizontally process. And horizontally processing something is like, why now? Why did this come up? Why are you presenting this information to me?
Okay.
Why today? And it sounds like for you, psychedelics are a tool that brings you into horizontal processing, right? Like, why are you communicating with this other person? How are you communicating with them? And then perhaps for you, psychedelics can be a rich tool for examining your communication with specific individuals at specific times. It's very rewarding. But you're probably not going to learn like a Bible's worth of information about Michael Johnson that you don't already know.
Right.
Or you possess a great deal of self-knowledge.
Right.
So if you're just doing psychedelics to explore into yourself, you might get there and think, well, I already know what this is like, and now I'm just high for 8 hours. So that's my weekend gone. You know what I mean?
Hey, sometimes it is like that, but once in a while I realize that there's something I haven't worked out that I, a stone left unturned. And most recently, an intention I set was I learned about what aphantasia was. Do you know what aphantasia is?
Yeah, I have it.
No shit. So that was I'm sure as you might know, a term coined in like 2015. Mm-hmm. So it's relatively new. So for me, if it's something I knew that I had, and for anyone who doesn't know, it's just like the lack of imagination. You don't have a mind's eye. You're not able to form images. And just to clarify, that's something you can't do completely.
That is something I am unable to do.
Wow. Amazing. So me too. So I came to the understanding after doing some research. Now, first of all, I would have seen it as a disability. I thought everyone was like me when I was a kid. So I would have been like, hey, if someone told me I had this, I wouldn't have ever tried to do creative things. All I do is art now. I do 3D modeling. I work in Illustrator. I do animation. So because I didn't see it as a disability, it didn't hinder me. And I literally learned about it like a year ago, and I was like, holy shit! And I found out very prominent artists have aphantasia, and it just like makes you think in a different way. But I also came to the understanding that it is a muscle that you can strengthen your imagination. So like imagine looking at like a pen in front of you, or these headphones in front of you, and then closing your eyes and imagining the same headphones. Like that's a lot easier than imagining like a made up world. And if you can do that to the point where you can see that, then maybe you can start to develop other images like memories or the face of a loved one or whatever. So my last trip had the intention of, that's why I actually put on a blindfold and music, and I tried to form images in my head based on like my thoughts.
True.
And the result was it was like a coliseum, which it wasn't vivid at all. Very like
basic,
not even pixelated. It's like, think about if it was pixelated, but the pixels were each blurry clouds. Pixelated blurry clouds.
Yeah.
And so Colosseum, but then everything all of my anything that had meaning to me, so attached meaning, food I like, people that are important to me, events. These were all represented in fractals, shapes, colors. And over time, over the course of the trip, it would become more complex. And they would start intertwining, and eventually the entire Colosseum was packed with these geometric shapes, but they each had meaning to me. Like that's my mom and dad over there, and this is like Colin, and like this, and this is this event or whatever, and it's all like together, and it was so crazy. It was such a wonderful experience. It was so colorful and vivid, and I kept the blindfold on the whole time. It was all classical music that was like highs and lows, lots of Journey type vibes to it. And anyways, I haven't done a secondary trip with that intention, and I haven't been doing my exercises to strengthen that muscle either. But it is something that I've been exploring and learning more about recently.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Maybe I should explore that in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, dude. I think aphantasia and visual disabilities can actually be like an asset in creating some kinds of art. Do you know the portrait painter Chuck Close?
And rings a bell, but no.
He's one of the most famous portraitists of the 20th century, and he had face blindness.
Okay. Yeah.
So he couldn't remember faces.
Yeah.
He would do his art manually, and I think maybe there could be something to be said for your imagination not being impeded by the fact that you recall images, right? You can just sort of like generate from nothing.
It also helps with
but maybe also makes certain things easier.
It also helps with keeping your emotions in check. You're not vividly remembering all these horrible situations. It helps with like keeping your anxiety down, I imagine.
That's right. Yeah, I think about that sometimes. People talk about being like haunted by images from the past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I never forgot her face when she did this, or like I watched a horror movie and that, and like I don't know what they're talking about.
I always, my main example, people always will try to trick you and tell you a joke and be like, imagine your mom's pussy, in the joke, and I'm like, and I never got it because I could never do that. But other people around though,
like how often
when we were kids, like high school, so it's like, but like, or even before, but like the other kids in the group who would be hearing the joke would be like, oh, like because they're seeing it in their head, and I'd have to fake go, oh, just to not be weird, but I'm not feeling what they're feeling because I don't have that imagination. I assume that's what's going on there.
Yeah, because I can see everything perfectly in my head.
That's disgusting.
Like I can see things. I can see things happen. Like if I like make it happen. Like I can see things happen with my eyes open.
Right. It seems like a superpower to me.
It's very, very odd.
But it's a normal power.
But it
just walks around like that, except us. It's crazy.
Yeah, just blackness. I could not imagine that.
Yeah. It's black, yeah. It's just dark. For you, it's black. You get a different color. What do you get?
It's black. It's like
black.
buggy. It's not interesting to talk about. It's like nothing.
It's nothing. Yeah.
Happens.
And what we do get is when you close your eyes, you'll see like dots and colors, right? And that's not even your imagination. That's like shit on your eyeball that you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm just seeing my eyelids.
Yeah, your eyelids. Yeah, no, I had to learn that too. I'm like, my imagination has red and green and dots. Oh nope.
Mental life seems so cluttered, like with images to me.
Yeah.
I already get distracted and like feel very internal a lot of the time. I'm like, but if there were like paintings there too, like I feel like I'd never open my fucking eyes. Like,
yeah, yeah, you can have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun when I listen to music. Like I just think of music videos and like just have like a little theater going on in my head. But other than that, I don't know. I feel like I need it.
That's why you're gonna be like a producer.
Yeah, right.
You can see you got the vision. I always say like I'm technically sound with the Adobe software, but I work really well when like someone gives me a vision to work with, and then I can hammer it out pretty quickly if you can explain your vision to me. But it's much more difficult for me to build something from scratch. I usually explain it like my imagination is external, so I start with nothing. A blank page is like the scariest thing for me. But if I start surfing the web and start looking at ideas and just it doesn't even take long, a quick Google search and just get the gears going, all of a sudden my imagination is this external thing where I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm able to start to remix it in front of me, not in any sort of vivid imagination meaningful way, but it's in a way that I can have a direction. I can take a piece of this and a piece of this, I can draw that and I can mix it with this and let's see how it looks. Oh, now that I can see it, I see that it looks like shit, but I know how to fix it now. And I wouldn't have never gotten there if I didn't dive in first. You know what I mean?
Wow. So Mike's imagination is Adobe
it's Google. It's Google Images.
But I mean, where you work it all out
and all the art.
Doing all this stuff.
That's why there's art everywhere.
That's so crazy. So you have an external imagination, like an external hard drive.
In a way.
Wow.
You could say.
Hey, have you ever noticed the aphantasia helping you with writing or hindering it in any way? Like, I was wondering what your process is like.
Yeah. I have no way of knowing, but I think there are characteristics of my writing that you could relate to aphantasia. First of all, like writing has never been very hard for me, and I think like part of it is that everything is encoded verbally for me. Like all my memories are completely verbal. The observations I make about the world are totally verbal. I have like 3 plies of memory that are pretty strong. One is verbal, one is audio, and one is smells. Like smell and taste is very vivid for me, and so are words. And so it's like if I want to summarize an event, like the summary already exists. So that's what I'm carrying around. So that I think helps.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like I very rarely write detailed visual description because in a way I just don't know how. And then when I'm reading books, there are lots of authors who are very acclaimed that have a really hard time reading because like maybe there are lots of characters, but they're each described visually, and then there are a whole bunch of characters running around, and they talk in similar ways that you're expected to tell them apart based on the image in your head.
Yeah.
Like I can't do that. That's incredibly hard. Something like Lord of the Rings, where it's all like very picturesque, painterly descriptions. Like that's nothing to me. Like that's just a page of text that dies on the page. It doesn't do anything to my head. So I prefer writers who are sort of chatty, with a sort of spoken vernacular kind of effect to the way they write. That's the literature that matters most to me.
Wow. I'm so happy I met a fellow Taser.
Yeah, right.
Is that what we're called?
Taser, yeah.
Tasers?
Thought you guys were
I don't
A.
know. That sounds good. To me.
Thought you guys were A fans.
A fans. Okay. A fans.
Papers.
Is it called aphantasia because Fantasia is so visually vivid?
I can't remember, but I did read the definition of it.
I think that must be it.
Yeah, it must be a lack of
I think it's just like
Fantasia.
Fantasia is like whimsy, fantasy.
Yeah.
In Greek, I guess.
So you guys have no whimsy.
That's so sad.
Yeah, I don't know. We should have more insight into our own condition, I guess.
But one thing you just said to me was pretty amazing. So you're saying your memories are all verbal too. So they're just all verbal.
I mean, not exactly, but there's sort of like a floaty sea of words around everything I experience. And when I walk around my day, if something significant happened at 2 p.m., by 3 p.m., I feel like I have sort of an editorial take on it that I could put onto the page if I felt like it.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't do that, and it just floats away. In fact, that's most events of my life. But yeah, verbal is the primary thing.
So have you ever done psilocybin or any psychedelic and like tried writing, or do you not do that?
I've tried. It's a little too overwhelming. I live tweeted an acid trip once, and it went really well. It was a really fun acid trip, and live tweeting it was a really fun way to do it because it felt like I had all of these insights in my head, and they were too big, and they floated away too quickly. But by jamming them into tweet formats, I could preserve at least little chunks of them.
Right.
Also, a lot is overstating them, but a fair number of people have told me that the end of my book is the best thing I've ever written. And I got the idea for how my book was going to end on psilocybin.
Are you talking about your recent book, or?
I only have one.
Oh, I thought you had two. Okay.
No, only one.
My bad.
And it just came to me. I was stuck in my head, but I had to finish it. And I just did mushrooms, and I was like, oh yeah, that's the way it should end. And it's not a very obvious way for it to end, but it seemed obvious to me. And
I look forward to reading it.
One of those things where, like, I feel like some people think that like psychedelics are the source of all the universe's knowledge, and that everything they think on psychedelics is like the truth. And then there are these other people who think that like it's all a bunch of bullshit. And then I feel like my position is somewhere in between. But the strongest evidence I have for the insight mattering is like, look at the last page of my book. Do you like it? It's mushrooms. That's what happened.
We got to check out that PDF. Did you already send it to me? I actually don't recall. The PDF of your book.
Oh yeah, I need to do that.
Nice. Yeah, I'll share it with Colin as well.
Yeah, I wanna. I like that. Let's not spoil it for anybody who's watching. Any of your fans out there. Man, cool. That's pretty amazing. I'm so stuck on that because every time like I keep saying like that's amazing because I keep like I can picture things in my head all the time, and if there was nothing, I'd go crazy.
Wouldn't that be sad? Wouldn't that be a sad existence, Colin?
Yeah, I'd be very upset.
No, it's not that bad. You find ways to adapt. That's for sure.
Yeah, true.
Again, I don't know. When did you learn that you were different with aphantasia?
Well, first of all, I have a question for you. Do you get like lost or misplaced objects a lot?
Me? Actually, a place for everything, and everything has its place.
Yes.
And Colin will attest to this because he probably moves things around when he comes here on purpose because I put them right back. So I don't often lose things. That doesn't mean I never lose things.
Right.
But yeah, I try to be aware of like what I have.
Yeah.
He loses things all the time. All the time.
Oh, all right. I just wanted to ask because I'm not the tidiest person, and I feel like if I place something out of sight, it's just gone. I have no idea where it is.
I categorize things like drawers have categories. So like if I'm looking for something specific, it could be either in drawer A or drawer B because it's like these two types of categories.
That's me. Right. What you just said, that's me. That's how I go. If something's just there and I don't like categorize it or anything, it's gone. I'll just find it when I need it. Kind of
okay,
thing.
So that's not an aphantasia thing. It's just a thing. Or not necessarily.
Yeah, like I don't think we have problems with like getting a layout of a house, for example. Like you can sort of can sort of do it in your head, but you don't get vivid images of it. It's different.
This isn't aphantasia. This is just me being stupid. I forgot the question you asked before I launched into that digression.
Oh no, I forgot too. Let's see if it comes back to me.
You said something about aphantasia.
Well, yeah.
And then he was like, he's like, do you lose things? No.
I lose memories.
Damn. Wow. Yeah, we lost that. It's gone.
Forever.
It's gone.
Forever.
And we all said we don't smoke a lot of weed. Well, Mike didn't say that.
Everyone's always blaming weed for memory. You're real.
I'm pretty sure my memory's just bad. Oh, I know now. You asked me when I discovered it. Aphantasia.
Wow.
That's right. When did you discover that you were different than other people?
I had a book club with my friend Naomi, and we were reading a book called McTeague, which is a wonderful, wonderful novel. One of the things about McTeague is that it's very dense with visual description. And we were talking about the book, and Naomi said, the book was a really slow-paced experience for me because I kept having to stop and review all of the images. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, she was describing, I guess I'd heard people say, I'm picturing such and such a thing. And I say that too. I assume they were using that phraseology the way that I do, which is as a metaphor for a certain kind of conception in advance, right? But she was actually like closing her eyes and seeing paintings. That was the first time anyone had ever described that process to me. And I was like, you're insane. And she was like, no, that's like normal. And then I went around my life asking people over and over and over again, like, so do you like you close? So let me get this straight. You like close your eyes, and there's like stuff there.
You're describing my last year of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so I slowly realized just how much of an aberration I was.
So do you think it was beneficial that you found out as early as you did, or do you think it would have been better if you just never knew?
I don't know. It's an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Or not interesting. I don't know if people are going to be excited about this listening to the podcast, but it got me a few good paragraphs in my book.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. I feel like if you're a writer, any way that your brain is distorted, but not so distorted that you can't write about it or that it impedes your ability to live life is a good thing.
Right.
Like if you're weird, it's good.
Right, of course. Yeah, weird is in. Sure.
That's so true. That's actually a really good way of putting that. I think that would go with all creative endeavors almost. Your mind's just like tweaked off a little bit in some kind of way.
Sure. You can refract the world differently.
You gotta.
People can recognize the refractions, but they might not have been able to make it because their brains aren't as weird as your brain.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, I guess that's like a lot of what like Quentin Tarantino does almost. He does some really weird shit, and when you see it, it makes sense. But like nobody ever thinks to make movies the way he does.
Right.
Or use the character.
And what is that? What's his let's call it condition?
His condition? Oh man, I have no idea. He's just weird. Anytime you watch an interview with that guy, he's just very, very odd guy. Just very odd. Just watched a lot of movies as a kid from like 9 years old to like
watching.
Yeah, to like 17, and just odd. Yeah.
Guys, I should probably go.
It's time.
Yeah, we're wrapping it up.
Yeah.
It's 8:30 over here. What time is it where you are?
It's 5:30.
Everything's better in California. Everything.
I know.
The quarantine's
well,
better.
Taxes aren't great here.
Yeah,
taxes.
I keep hearing people say that, but I definitely want to live there one day. Gotta move there. I'm actually really. Yeah, I think I should. I'm very jealous of you.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Sasha. Thank you for sharing
Thanks
your
for
psychedelic stories.
Last thing. What's the book called? What's the book called? Where can people find it? What else do you got going on in your life?
Look into camera number 3.
Look into camera number 3.
Perfect.
So the book is called All the Wrong Moves. It is available in fine bookstores everywhere across North America. You can also get it online, of course. And right now, the creative writing ventures I'm working on are mostly secret, just for the moment. And I also teach writing. I'm a writing coach. So if you want to talk about how I could maybe teach you to hate writing less or do more of it, go to my website, imsashachapin.com, and you can find a way to contact me there.
Awesome. Perfect, man. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the book.
My pleasure. Thank you. This is really fun.
Definitely. This has been Talkin' Mush, and I'm going to do the intro, but...
Whoa. Oh,